Good evening. I'm Bob May, Battalion Commander for the 1st of the 252 Armored Regiment, Thunderbolts, with the North Carolina National Guard. We are currently conducting annual training at the Orchard Combat Training Center in the Treasure Valley of Idaho. I'm also a grad student at NC State in the Parks, Recreation, Sports Tourism Management Cohort Program, College of Natural Resources. Tonight, I would like to talk to you about the Morley Nelson Snake River Birds of Prey National Conservation Area, highlighting some key areas, facilities, activities, as well as inherent risk and a risk management plan. But first, it might be fun and worthwhile to look at how we manage risk in the United States Army while we train in the conservation area.
All military operations, to include training, has inherent risk. At the Orchard Combat Training Center, some of our identified risks were associated with live fires, explosives handling, vehicle and rail operations, as well as the added complexity of night exercises. The composite risk management process assists leaders in identifying, assessing, and controlling risks that arise from operational factors and informed decision-making that balance risk costs with mission benefits. There are risk management worksheets and matrices that assist, but in my experience, leadership involvement and supervision is the most critical factor in mitigating risk.
The Morley Nelson Snake River Birds of Prey National Conservation Area is located 35 miles south of Boise, Idaho. The 480,000 acres is managed by the Bureau of Land Management. Although the BLM mission is to maintain the remarkable wildlife habitat in the conservation area, there's still ample room for recreational opportunities, such as camping, fishing, boating, hiking, sightseeing, horseback riding, off-road vehicles, and recreational shooting. Let's take a quick tour.
To better understand the conservation area outside of OCTC, I visited Dedication Point and Celebration Park. The most unique feature of the conservation area is that it is the largest concentration of nesting birds of prey in all of North America. The steep, craggy cliffs of the Snake River Canyon, thermal updrafts, and a broad plateau rich in jackrabbits and ground squirrels, more commonly referred to as whistle pigs, make this place like no other. The area is also home to the North American badger. I visited with Amanda Hoffman, the National Conservation Area Manager with the Bureau of Land Management, to learn more about the BLM mission and the inherent risk associated with the conservation area. The Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976 is a federal law that governs the way in which public lands administered by the BLM are managed. The BLM mission is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of America's public lands for the use and enjoyment of future generations. The number one risk to the delicate balance in the area is wildfires that would destroy the natural shrubs that provide a habitat for the predator birds' prey. Invasive grasses tend to grow back quicker than natural vegetation. The BLM also works to protect the scientific, cultural, and recreational resources and values of the National Conservation Area. There are numerous artifact sites from the Shoshone, Northern Paiute, and Bannock American Indian tribes. In order to develop a specific risk management plan, I looked at the recreation area and activities at Celebration Park in Canyon County. I had the opportunity to talk to Laura Barber, the park's outdoor recreation planner, about some of the inherent risks.
Wildfire in the summer this time of year, and then I would say the other biggest risk that people run into is actually the Snake River.
And what are some of the risks when folks are out on the river?
So the river is, it looks, I guess, deceptively smooth, and so people in boats are fine, but people a lot of times will come down here at night to swim when there's no staff, and so people either end up getting swept downstream a lot further than they have meant to, or sometimes they'll even end up drowning.
How about wildlife? Are there any poisonous
So we
animals?
have rattlesnakes down here. They're rare, but once in a while people do run across those. That would be, as far as wildlife, it would be like bee stings, scorpions, and rattlesnakes would be the only things that could hurt someone probably.
And for a risk management plan, how do you mitigate some of the risk?
As far as the wildlife, it's really just education. So as visitors come through, trying to warn them what might be out there and having them, plan ahead if they're going to be hiking. With wildfire, we do a lot of fuel mitigation and weed control around our park structures itself. We have evacuation plans in place, and fire restrictions usually go into place starting maybe a little later than now, so mid-June, and going through the height of the fire season. So whereas normally we allow campfires in fire pits over the summer months when it's really hot, a lot of times we don't allow campfires at all. And then we have some sprinkler systems that have been put in recently too, so that in the event that a wildfire started coming close to one of our structures, we would be able to turn on the sprinklers and hopefully wet the facilities down to keep them from catching.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate your time. You have a beautiful area, and I can't wait to get out and explore.
Great, thank you.
On my adventures, I bumped into some adult leaders from the Sage School in Haley and asked them about safety precautions while guiding their youth group.
Swimming, I would say. It's probably one of the things we think about a lot. Just whenever there's water around, we always have to have a close eye on the kids. And today it's really hot, so we're thinking about keeping kids hydrated, making sure they're drinking. We've got our shade tents up because there's not a lot of shade around here.
What are you talking to the children about to make sure that they're safe with fires?
Well, I think the big thing is that with fires, the only times that they're happening are when they're supervised, so we're there. So it's less of us explaining like, hey, be careful when you're making fires on your own, and more of us just kind of being there to oversee and make sure we're going through safe fire procedures and that fires are put out when we're done, and making sure we're using like the established fire rings.
We have one other thing you might be interested in that as a school, we've started taking satellite phones with us on all of our trips as a risk management sort of mitigation, just because there are times when we don't have great cell service, and if something happens, we want to make sure that we can always call for help.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To develop the risk management plan, I used the DIM process. First, we'll identify and classify the risks, and then select methods of treatment for each risk. These are the identified risks. I'll provide key highlights for each. Additional detail can be found in the written plan. Wildfires is the #1 risk to the area. To learn a bit more, I met with Chris McCormick, the fire chief from the Orchard Combat Training Center, Fire and Emergency Services. Wildfires can be caused by man-made campfires, debris burning, cigarettes, fireworks, tracer rounds, downed power lines, as well as natural causes like lightning. There's many variables that go into the dangers of wildfires. For treatment of risk, some of the keys are public education, fire danger rating system, monitoring variables such as relative humidity, fuel moisture, drought maps, and lightning activity, conducting prescribed burns, and having numerous fire breaks, providing fire pits and pads at campsites and picnic areas. There needs to be robust funding streams for personnel, equipment, communication, training, and exercises. Most importantly, there needs to be a unified strategy of effort and shared resources in a local, state, and federal tiered approach. The Wildlife Mitigation Plan must be developed under the umbrella of the National Incident Management System and the Incident Command System. The same process was used to develop treatment plans for natural acts such as extreme weather, flooding, earthquakes, and landslides, water danger on the Snake River, animal bites and stings, as well as exposure to the plague and hantavirus, trail and outdoor recreation, shooting and hunting, and risk to conservation area habitat and cultural sites, as well as internal agency personnel and operations risk. To implement the risk management plan, the treatment for risk must be integrated into policies and procedures. Training must be conducted for current and new employees, as well as specialty training that requires credential education, such as swift water rescue, environmental compliance, firefighting, medical services, and emergency preparedness. All training will include ethics, judgment, and problem solving. Communication must be effective across the width and breadth of the organization, be two-way, and include printed guidelines, signage, videos, and included in meetings, briefings, and all operations. As a part of implementation, preventative inspections will be conducted in the areas of facilities, buildings, equipment, vehicles, and OSHA-specific items. There will also be a requirement for consent, waivers, and liability releases by participating users. In the area of risk reduction, proper reporting of loss and accidents must be timely and accurate. Management of the plan will be designated to a lead risk manager and a risk management committee, but all supervisors and employees will have responsibility and a voice to ensure risks are managed effectively and be able to provide continual input and feedback. The committee will provide a forum for identification, discussion, and resolution of risks, as well as reviewing inspections and loss reports. Over the last few minutes, I talked about the Army Composite Risk Management Process, as well as a risk mitigation plan for the Morley-Nelson Snake River National Conservation Area, with a highlight on Celebration Park. It was great to explore these unique and fun areas, but after all my travel, it's good to be home in the Old North State, land of the longleaf pine. Thanks.